super hyper smart on figuring out the name.
It had to be insurance.
Welcome back to Noob School. As always, we're interviewing great business people, and these stories are meant to help you get better at sales. Don't forget to check out noobschool.org and contact me if I can help you with your sales. Enjoy the show. All right, so Crawford, I'm glad you're here, man. Glad you made the trek down from Chapel Hill.
I did, yeah. 3 hours, 45 minutes, door to door.
You gonna move down here one day?
I feel like I kind of have a location here and Chapel Hill. But
Oh, you got a dual
I think
location.
my daughter would move here one day. She's a junior at the University of Georgia, and she loves Greenville, South Carolina.
Cool.
So if she does, maybe talk the wife into it.
That's a good start. That's a good start. So Crawford and I have been friends for a long time. He's just a couple years younger than me, but I remember we grew up in the same neighborhood, and it was a tough hood we grew up in.
It was the best.
It was the
was
best.
the best of all hoods.
Crawford has three other brothers. I think you're all like a year apart, and y'all were mean. One of you hit my brother Dan in the head with a brick one time.
Yeah, that was probably my brother Perry.
Perry.
Yeah.
He wasn't even the meanest one.
Well, we were not nice kids.
No.
No. So we've grown up a little bit. Best story though is when Perry beat up one of Sandy's friends.
An older boy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez.
That was fond memories of that neighborhood, John.
It was tough. It was tough. All right. Well, after the mean streets we grew up on, you ended up going to northern Colorado for college.
The other UNC.
The other UNC. So you just got it wrong. Or you got it right.
I was like, I'm going to UNC.
Yeah.
But the one that most people attach that to, Chapel Hill, did not let me in.
Oh.
So I'm like, what? Is there another UNC?
Yeah, that's the same reason I didn't go to Harvard. So how did you pick that?
I think it picked me.
Okay.
Back in the day, I played a lot of tennis. And I decided that I was going to try to play tennis in college. And then, again, an attempt at humor going bad, but it was one of the few schools that let me in. And it was in Colorado, and I just knew I wanted to be in the mountains for school.
Yeah.
I went to University of South Carolina for 1 year, had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then I just realized, I want to do something outside of the norm. It felt like high school all over again. So UNC, here I come. And didn't know a single person there. And, 4 or 5 years later, who's counting?
Yeah.
It was a great experience.
So the first year at Carolina was like high school with much more liberal rules, I would think.
Yes, liberal rules.
Okay.
In quotes.
And was my brother a bad influence in any way?
Brother Dan, well, no, he was a great influence.
Okay.
Like to you know this, but Dan is probably the best salesperson you and I both know.
Yeah.
And he was able to, somehow we all lived in dorms.
Yeah.
Brother Dan, the nicest condo in Columbia, South Carolina.
Yes.
So he was, it was good to be friends with Dan because he would let you come do laundry at his condo.
We had, Dan and I were going to a golf tournament one time, and happened to be our CIO was with us from our company. Dan was trying to sell him something, of course. And the guy was like, well, look, he goes, I can't talk about it right now. The guy was drinking beer. And Dan gave him a blank piece of paper and said, well, just sign right here. The guy said, I'm not signing that. Why would I sign that? It's just a blank piece of paper. He goes, I'm just getting you used to signing. So anyway, you're right about Dan. He's a mess.
He is a mess.
So you finished up northern Colorado, and then, but while you were there in college, I want to skip over this. You were with a great company called University Directory.
Yeah.
For how many summers?
So this was my entry into sales. I was walking through the quad
Yeah.
at the University of Northern Colorado.
Yeah.
We've established it as the other UNC.
Yes.
And there's a poster on the wall that says make $10,000-$15,000 this summer. Just call this number.
Chick.
I'm like, that sounds like a good way to spend the summer. I needed the money. So I call the number. Oddly enough, some lady in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. That's where
Yeah.
University of Directors was located,
Yeah.
where I currently live. And I didn't really know what I was getting into, but the next thing you know, I'm interviewing for a sales job. And this was probably, just the best way to kind of enter into the sales profession.
Yeah.
So they would hire college kids each summer, as you know, to sell the advertising in the back of Yellow Pages. For all the noobs out there, there was this thing back in the day called Yellow Pages. And so University Directories published the campus phone book, and they would hire folks like myself to sell ads in the back all summer long, door to door, knocking on gas stations and
Yeah.
trucking companies and recording studios. It was wonderful.
So any local merchant, basically.
Any local merchant, we would literally have at one point in time, they would fly everybody back to Chapel Hill to train you before you went into the local market.
Yeah.
And we would be in Chapel Hill, we would be drawing out territories on a map. And you would literally spread out and just like draw a line around like a Franklin Street.
Yeah.
And Crawford, you've got these 30 businesses. Sally, you've got these 20 businesses. And you would just go knock door to door all day long in the heat.
Yeah.
And come back that night and kind of tally the results.
Well, I mean, if you want to go into sales, what better way to start?
So fantastic. And I think the local manager for the school, they sent me to Michigan State in East Lansing. And 2 days before I'm supposed to go there, I think the manager of the team backed out. And they said, Crawford, we got a great opportunity. You're going to sell and you're going to manage the team. Not knowing any better, I thought that was a great opportunity to do both sales and leadership. So I would have a team meeting in the morning.
Yeah.
We'd go out to the local businesses all day long.
Yeah.
We'd come back with very few sales, and we would talk about it, and then we would just figure it out as the summer went along. But it was a great experience.
That's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Well, for those of you who don't know, this is my friend Crawford Keys, and after that experience and after the other UNC experience, he started selling for enterprise software companies. And I'm going to go through the litany of them here one at a time, but he started a great niche CRM company called Onyx, and currently is one called SalesLoft out of Atlanta. Are they public yet, or?
Not yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable the companies you worked with. And it's all like some derivative of university directories. It's like you get an area, you get a team, sometimes a bigger team, sometimes a smaller team, but it's just, for you, it just doesn't seem like it matters where you shift to. Is it the same kind of game?
At the end of the day, it's about, as I can't remember what somebody told me, it was like, Crawford, it's not about the suit and tie. It's about caring for the customer. And I think about, you're the one who actually introduced me to Onyx software. When I moved to Seattle, I was living in North Carolina, moved to Seattle at the time, probably 25 years old. I literally thought that the way to get into sales was act cool, wear the suit, have the great tie.
Yeah.
And I just, until I broke through at Onyx at a startup in Seattle, I never really understood what selling was all about. And at the end of the day, for me, and that's when you mentioned it travels from Onyx to SalesLoft, it literally is about understanding the customer's problem and caring more about solving that problem than it is cashing the commission check.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. So no matter where you are, caring about figuring out the problem and solving the problem and letting the rest of it work itself out.
Yeah.
That's great.
I was talking to one of the companies I went to a few years ago was a great company that's now acquired by Salesforce called Tableau. And I sat down with my boss at the time, and I was walking into leadership for the very first time. He goes, Crawford, within the first couple of meetings, I can tell whether someone's going to be successful in sales or not. I'm like, pen, notebook, I got to write this down because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, well, tell me, what is it that makes people successful in the first meeting? He goes, if they start talking about products and features and services, I know I've got a long road of coaching and they might not make it. If they sit down in that first meeting with the customer and they've done their homework and they've got a couple questions to understand what's going on in their environment, and they start with that kind of inspection of the business problem, I'll teach them everything else.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I look for.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's, you know, it's hard to do and it's not hard to do. If you know how to do it, it's not hard to do. You just simply ignore that other stuff and just drill down with the customer on what the real problem is, right?
What my mentor told me is, Crawford, it's not about what you wear, it's how much you care.
I never saw you as a clothes horse, but I'll take your word for it. So yeah, you called me. Were you already in Seattle when you called me? We weren't out there yet, were you?
No, I think I called you. I was living in Chapel Hill at University Directories with my friend Tom.
Yeah,
Tom called.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, John, there's got to be more to sales than Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
This is getting a little bit old. And your company, DataStream, had just acquired, not the company, but the Onyx software.
Yeah.
And you said, hey, there's a little company in Seattle, cool guys, you should call them.
Yeah.
So that was actually the entry into software sales, is I cold called Onyx software from my tiny condo in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
It was Eben.
Eben Frankenberg
Yeah.
picked up the phone.
That's crazy. Well, and I think I also remember you were exactly the kind of people that we were hiring. We hired your brother. We hired a lot of people that were your friends, but you wanted to go out west. I remember that. I think I gave you to Onyx.
You know, I think it was the, I wouldn't say mistake, but I wanted a different experience when I went to college.
Yeah.
Kind of got that wrong by going to South Carolina, then ended up at UNC.
Yeah.
And then as I moved further to the west, I'm like, what's further west? Seattle. But the cool thing about you introducing me to Onyx and me calling him was Eben Frankenberg picks up the phone and he literally says, you know what, Crawford, we're not going to hire anybody that doesn't have sales or software sales experience. So call me back in a couple of years. And I said, Eben, before you hang up on me, if I paid my way to Seattle, and would you at least talk to me? He goes, if you pay your way out here, you can talk to everybody at the company. How many people? Like 12.
Yeah.
So sure enough, I paid my way, interviewed with all 12, and ended up spending almost 9 years at Onyx. It was a trajectory of my career that I'll always look back on and have fond memories of that experience.
So by the time you were 30, you'd had a great experience, multiple size companies, multiple size deals.
Yeah, I mean, I started as like probably a lot of the noobs as an inside sales rep.
Yeah.
Here's a list of companies. Here's some phone numbers.
Yeah.
Call us, get us a meeting, and then get out of the way.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I sat on the phone and just called 12, 14 hours a day, got meetings for anybody that would take the meeting. And then, you know, I attached myself to a pretty strong mentor, a guy named Dave Walsh.
Yeah.
And Dave was, oh man, he was the best salesperson at Onyx. And then he spent 12, 13 years at Salesforce, wildly successful. And you know, that mentorship, he's like, Crawford, I'm not going to stop my day and teach you, but if you attach yourself to my hip and you can learn, like, let's go.
Yeah.
So I was his inside sales rep at Onyx, and he taught me the ropes, and then he advocated for me to move into a field sales role.
Now, Dave, you let me talk to Dave a few times too. I really like Dave. Is he retired now?
I think so. He's, again, like I say, he's wildly successful. Probably doing some consulting like you're doing.
Yeah.
Bought a beautiful house on a lake up in New Hampshire. I think his kids are all grown, and he's just enjoying life.
Well, he was the first one that because I know he was crushing it. And you told me how great he was. And so I did kind of a phone interview with him to see what I can learn. And he said, I'm going to tell you what I do. He goes, you're not going to believe me, and no one does it this way. But he said, I get up really early, like, 5:30, 6 in the morning, and I've got 150 or so, prospects that might buy eventually. and I almost hit them all every day, at least every other day, with an individual email, just real quick. Hey, thought you wanted to see this article. Hey, what's up? Hey, whatever. Just a little. He was giving them something usually, something to look at, or occasionally whatever. And then he said, so then I go exercise and eat breakfast, at 7:30 or 8 o'clock. And when he came back to his desk, he goes, I'd have a flurry, 10 or 15 of that 150 would come back and say, hey, I need help with this, that, we're ready for a proposal, And I said, well, what about travel? Because you're doing outside sales. And he's like, no. I mean, he was saying that he didn't have to travel that much.
Well,
because
he also covered the biggest accounts in Boston. So
I guess that was helpful too, yeah. He'd just drive around.
Just drive around. But what you said there is a really good lesson for anyone that's thinking about getting into sales. When I remember it finally, what Dave would do is he would always be studying and researching a company and finding ways to bring them an idea or present them value without ever asking for anything out of the gate.
Yeah.
And there's actually a really great book I'm reading right now called Elite Sales Strategies. And the concept is being one up. And that sounds egotistical, but the idea about one up is you have something to teach the prospect or the customer that they don't know. Mm-hmm. And if you teach them something new on each conversation, they want to have the next conversation.
Yeah.
And if you go back to kind of what I was mentioning before, caring more about the problem and less about the commission check, if you show up and you're helping the customer think through it, you're going to get the meetings. You're going to have the more conversations. Your calendar is going to be full. But if you've got I can't remember who calls it, but if you've got commission breath and you're chasing the check, every customer can feel that.
Yeah.
They can feel it.
Yeah. I agree with you. That's good. Well, I'm gonna try to go see Dave in September. I'm going to Boston. I'm gonna try to put him on the calendar.
Well, I will make that trip with you.
Yes. Let's do it. All right. So a little bit more on Onyx. Evan was like the co-founder, and who was the founder? Brett? Was it Brent?
Yeah, Brent Fry.
Fry
was the founder. There was 3 founders: Brent Fry, Brian Jansen, and a guy named Todd Stevenson. So all 3 of them were at Microsoft. And they were building an internal CRM, customer relationship management system at Microsoft. Mm-hmm. And they saw an opportunity to take this to market. And I think they got the blessings from Bill or whoever gives the blessings to go start your own company. And they spun it out. And at the time, a lot of companies were coming out with software to automate the sales function, or software to automate the marketing function, or the customer service function. And the differentiator for Onyx was, we think it ought to be one platform that covers the entire customer life cycle. And those 3, I started at Onyx, I think I was like the 26th or 27th employee. Mm-hmm. We ran it up to 1,000 or more and went public. And the thing I remember about that was it was all about the mission. Like we felt like we were doing something bigger than ourselves. Mm-hmm. We felt like we were changing the game with how companies looked at their customer data. And man, everyone was rowing as hard as the other person. Mm-hmm. It was like a professional fraternity. Everyone was just having a blast, and we were making money.
That's great.
And we were changing the world. It was a lot of fun.
And just one quick side thing here, but Brent now, the last I read, he did Smartsheet, but then he went on and he's doing something about removing rocks from farms with drones or something.
Yeah, how cool is that?
What is that? What's going on there?
Oh my God! So I went and saw Brent. This might have been 2 or 3 years ago, and I was sitting down in his house. He's got 4, 5, 6 kids, and they're all like really small, and they're running around. He was cooking dinner. I'm like, Brent, what's this? What are you doing right now? What are you getting ready to do? And kind of going back to the mission and being passionate about it. He grew up on a farm in Grangeville, Idaho, and he and his family and his dad had spent hours and hours removing rocks from the land, because if the rocks hit the machinery, it puts them out of commission. Yeah. The crop doesn't come in. I'm not a farmer, But he starts explaining to me how he's going to use AI and drones to go pick it up. And I kind of had a smirk on my face. And he goes, let me just explain something to you. He goes, Onyx, no one thought that would work. Smart Sheet, people laughed at me.
Yeah.
Are you going to bet against me on the drone picker, Crawford? I'm like, no, can I give you some money? But Brent he is an awesome human being. All of the folks that started Onyx are just wonderful people.
Yeah.
Great character.
Yeah, awesome. We enjoyed using their product. We used it for a long time. So you left there after almost 10 years. Was Oracle the next
I
spot?
believe it was Salesforce.
Salesforce, okay.
Yeah. That was a short stay at Salesforce because everyone knows Salesforce. It's one of the best software stories in the history of software.
Sure.
But it was completely different from Onyx. Onyx felt like family and purpose and mission, and I was good friends with everyone there. And then it was just a new environment. I think I went kind of because it was the cool new company, but I didn't really do the homework to say, okay, is this where I should be? Is this the right next step in my career? And if I'd have had some hindsight, maybe I would have gone back to an environment that was a lot smaller, like the Onyx environment, because I always felt like I was building something.
Yeah.
Salesforce was kind of, even though it was still early, it was built.
Yeah, it's big. And so then Oracle?
I think it was Oracle. 52, John. Sometimes the memory doesn't kick in.
Well, just tell me, what was the next cool company you worked at? Was Tableau?
I think this is a good lesson learned for some of the noobs. I remember talking to Dave Walsh, my mentor at the time, and he's like, you know what, Crawford, Oracle might not look bad on your resume. You can make it a lot of money. Go spend 3 or 4 years there, however long, and it could be a stepping stone for something else.
Yeah.
And he was not wrong. The money at Oracle at that time, I still remember. I was on a team, and we did an $8 million deal down in Fort Lauderdale, and that was an entire different selling motion that I'd ever been involved with, and it certainly was nice to the bank account. But if as noobs start to think about what they want to do with their career, like find the people that you love being around and find something that's meaningful and purposeful. Look, I got meaning and purpose out of that commission check at Oracle, but it wasn't what I stood for, and I never felt at home. And I knew that I wanted to give back in my career. And I was always complaining about the manager that I worked for. And it might have been my wife. She's like, stop complaining about that leader and go step into that world. And I'm like, she's right. And so I said, what are the best managers and best leaders I've ever worked for? I just built a punch list. And what are the worst leaders and what was their punch list? Because even though you work for some bad managers, bad bosses, you can learn from the worst.
Yeah.
What not to do. So I built this list. I remember going to my dad's cabin, like I'm going to give back. What I mean by giving back is I want to mentor and help others become successful. Like you were a mentor to me, Dave Walsh was a mentor. And at Tableau, there's a gentleman named Barry Sauerwind. And Barry ran the Strategic Enterprise Sales Organization. Cool dude from Texas, wears his heart on his sleeve, just a real person. And I remember going through the interview process, and I'm like, kept telling him I didn't have the confidence to go walk into this leadership role because I'd never done it before.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you're looking for someone 5, 10, 15 years of experience, that's not me. But here's the type of leader you can expect, and here's the type of team that we're going to have. And if you respect this type of team that we're going to build under my, quote unquote leadership, then put me in. And after a pretty rigorous interview process and competing with people that had been managers, he gave me a shot.
Nice.
And he always gave me a shot because he goes, I want you to go build that team that you told me you're going to build. And we would sit around talking about Phil Jackson and great leaders and great coaches and how they got the most out of their team. And the Tableau experience was the one that moved me into leadership and was, probably where I've learned the most on how to lean in and take care of people, right? Not just being focused on the numbers, but being really deliberate about a person that is a part of your organization. What do they want to get? What do they want to do?
Yeah.
Where do they want their family to be in 5 or 10 years? And really understanding what drives them and trying to help them get to where they want to be.
Right. And then they'll give you whatever you want, right? Generally, in terms of effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had at SalesLoft, I've only been there a year, but I'm on day one with a guy named Southie. He lives in South Boston. I think that's why they named him Southie. I said, Southie, what do you want to do? Southie goes, I want your job. I'm like, oh, you want to run the Northeast Strategic Sales Team? I'm like, deal. Let's put a plan in place and let's figure out what your gaps are. And let's see if we can make that happen. Because who knows, we're going like crazy. Maybe you do take my job. And about 4 months ago, he got promoted into an RVP. We split the region up. Now we're peers, and it's just so rewarding
That's so
to
cool.
see him take off.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. What a company. So tell us a little more about SalesLoft, since that's where you are now. SalesLoft.
SalesLoft.
Loft.
Yes. We solve 3 core problems.
Okay.
One is on the front end of the sales cycle, we help solve the pipeline problem. As a CRO and a previous leader, everyone cares about the pipeline. And we have built an engine that helps sellers engage with their buyers on a regular motion to build the pipeline. The second thing we do is we help sellers improve their skills through a very fancy term called conversation intelligence. So this AI bot records your phone calls and it puts some analytics on top of your phone calls and tells you whether you're using too many filler words or if you're missing the messaging. And I go back as a manager and I listen to calls and I help them. It's like watching game tape.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan was the best, arguably. I still think he is and was, because he watched more game tape. So this is game tape for sellers, and we just unpack it and kind of look at what we could have done differently. And then the third problem we solve is forecast accuracy. It's a lot of fun, and it sits on top of Salesforce. So I'm still selling into that Salesforce ecosystem.
So it's just Salesforce customers you're selling to.
Predominantly, like 98%. We're starting to dip our toe into other CRMs like Microsoft.
And what's the CEO's name?
Kyle Porter.
Porter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He came to Greenville a couple years ago. I mean, 5 or 6 years ago maybe, and it was just the beginnings, whatever that was.
Yeah.
He was just launching this little thing he was going to call SalesLoft.
Yeah.
But the guy with him was the guy who started Pardot, kind of the guy in charge of Atlanta Tech Ventures and all that stuff. But the way he introduced Kyle, you could just tell something was going on. You could tell this thing was going to be big. They knew. It
was interesting because, and I'll get the story a little bit wrong, but Kyle, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name because he was one of the original founders at SalesLoft. They started by scraping all of the data from LinkedIn and deciphering kind of the right type of content from LinkedIn and giving it to salespeople. And there was a $6-7 million run rate business, but I think LinkedIn said, that's probably not a good use of our platform. So they rebuilt the whole cut that revenue stream, relaunched the product to what it is today. And it's unbelievable. I think we're about 1,000 employees right now, and Kyle started it, 3 or 4 folks. So it's been a good ride.
That's cool. Okay. So Crawford, tell us your favorite word.
Curious.
Curious. That's great.
Curious.
Great word.
When I interview a lot of salespeople, and I just want them to go deep. I want them to be curious about what I'm looking for, have some questions ready. I read an article, this might have been from, what's that? Is it Sandler?
Yeah.
I read an article published by Sandler 6 or 7 years ago that's always stood with me. I still have it saved. And it says, the title of the article is Sales is a Broadway Play Performed by Psychiatrists. What in the hell does that mean? So you read the article, and the Broadway play part of that is like sales is about delivering an amazing experience where you delight and surprise the customer. You think about the top producing play in the world. It's Hamilton. So Hamilton, they don't half-ass the lighting. They don't half-ass the music. They don't half-ass when someone comes on stage or off stage. Everything's thought through. So when you leave the arena, you have this amazing experience. And sales, is, in my view, is a lot like that. How do you design this amazing experience? And then the second part of that equation is the psychiatrist component. I don't see a psychiatrist, but if you ask my wife, she would say, I need one. But my understanding is when you show up, that first problem is never the real problem. It's session after session, and then you get to like the root of the problem. And in sales, when we show up, do they just tell you exactly what they need and why they need it?
They say, why don't you show me what you have, Crawford? Right? That's the first thing.
I've always loved that article, though. And so I literally, in my office, my home office, I've got a gigantic poster framed of the Hamilton play. I've never seen it. But when I'm thinking about a deal and working through strategy with a rep, I just look at the poster and like, okay, what can we do to change the game, delight them in a unique way? Anyway, that's why curious is my favorite word.
I love it.
The psychiatrist.
I love it. So any final words, any last bit of advice for the noobs?
Yeah. It took me a while to figure this out in my career, but there's no substitute for being yourself, right? I talked a little bit about at the beginning, wearing the fancy suit. I thought that was what you had to do to be in sales. And then I've learned through the years, through mentorships like yours and others, and kind of watching my dad and your dad operate, just be you. Don't be anyone else. And like I've said before, care more about the problem than your commission check, and things will fall into place.
That's good. Well, you've had a remarkable run, 30 years of enterprise deals at some of the best companies out there, and I don't see you slowing down anytime soon. So
I hope not.
We appreciate you sharing that advice with the noobs, and maybe you stick around, do some other stuff a little bit later.
I'd love to.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to hit the men's room. We come back.